the Housing Choice Voucher Inspections HQS session. So Eric is a hard worker with great attention to detail. He began his career 23 years ago in the HVAC field, and his experience with HVAC includes remodel and new construction mechanical HVAC design, installation, sales, and service. Over the course of those 23 years, Eric's roles included project manager, service manager, and business development. Since then, Eric has redirected his focus to property maintenance and housing inspector to expand his expertise. Eric's certifications include HVAC journeyman, EPA certs, housing inspector, and he started his career with the city of Wichita in 2015. Eric has an HVAC services tech, and in 2018, he started his career with the city of Wichita in 2015 as an HVAC service tech, and in 2018 was promoted to housing inspector. Eric is a family man who enjoys hobbies that include reading about ancient cultures, keeping up with the latest tech trends, collecting and selling sports cards, and all things outdoors. And so as we get settled in, just a few housekeeping tips. There will be photographer and videographer recording of this session. And so if you do not want to have your picture taken or to be on camera, please let me know. I will be in the back and can advise photographers accordingly. And if you have any other needs, I'm glad to assist with those as well. And so please join me in welcoming Eric this morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Okay, so thanks for coming to our conference. I'm going to go over the housing quality standards and what that means. We're a little bit different in regards to MABCD. MABCD and the housing quality standards are in line when it comes to ordinances. So what we're after is minimum standards in your house, and then we'll get into that ordinance further in the slides here. Like I said, thank you for coming. We're running a little bit behind, so please bear with me here. So we have 3 inspectors here at the housing department. There's 3 of us. They're not titled any one way or difference. We all do the same thing here. Those 3 are going to be Archie, which he's not here, and then Lee Converse, which he's not here either, and myself. We're out there doing inspections. These guys have got good backgrounds. They've been doing their jobs for quite some time. So, but those are those 3 will be the folks that you would see if you are a landlord putting your tenants or getting tenants that have Section 8 vouchers. Okay, so we have 4 types of inspections. When you hand in an RFTA from a tenant, they're gonna basically, an RFTA is a request for tenancy approval. That's going to be basically a profile of the unit, and you are basically saying, hey, look, here's who's paying for the utilities, who's going to be responsible for those, and what the address is, and it basically attaching the landlord, the tenant to the unit, and who's going to be responsible for the utilities and allowances. Those 4 inspections are when you do call us and say, hey, I'd like to have an inspection, or we call you, that's going to be your initial inspection. And then what that entails, we'll do the inspection. Should the unit pass, the paperwork gets sent off to the housing specialist, and we're not the end result in that initial inspection. We tell you that the unit passed inspection. You need to hear from your housing specialist that the unit passed the inspection, and then the lease and the HAP contract will be initiated. During their tenure there will be an annual inspection or biannual inspection. Some units require annual inspections. We do biannual inspections, but the ones that require annual inspection is either requested, or let's just say that those properties that require annual inspections has more surprises than the biannual inspection. So we kind of have to stay on those a little bit more. So they will have a biannual inspections. All inspections will be sent out through mail. We are starting to get into the emails and text messaging world with our landlords to be able to do this kind of scheduling, but primarily we do by mail. Also during that time, the landlords and the tenants has opportunity to do special inspection requests. Say the tenant isn't getting through the landlord, and the landlord needs to do something, or the tenant feels like the landlord needs to be doing something, or vice versa. Maybe the landlord's saying the tenant is doing something. Well, you can create a special inspection. We'll go out there and look at it and assess the situation, and we'll move forward on that special, whether it be the tenant, owner, or both that needs to act. And then the fourth thing is a quality control inspection. You'll get that letter in the mail. HUD just is required for us to do quality inspections to make sure that the inspectors are doing their job by HUD compliance. And you will get a letter saying, hey, we're showing up, we're following up on the last inspection that was done, whether it be a special or annual or initial, just to make sure that those things are have been done properly. Any questions on those? Anybody? No? Okay. So there again, here's what we do with the annual inspections. This is what it says. The initial inspection, the PHA conducts initial inspections in response to a request from the family to improve a unit for participation in the HCV program. The annual inspection HUD requires the Public Housing Authority to inspect each unit under lease at annual or biannual, depending on PHA policy, to confirm that the unit still meets HQS. The special inspection may be requested by the owner, the family, and a third party has resolved problems identified with the unit between biannual inspections, and has the quality control. HUD requires that a sample of the units be inspected by a supervisor or another qualified individual to evaluate the work of the inspectors. So that's just running it back and putting it in their terms, what they mean, okay? And we follow suit with them. So when we do the inspections of the house, there's 13 criteria that HUD puts out there. And HUD says those 13 criteria is what you see here. The sanitary facilities, food preparation, refuse and disposal, space and security, thermal environment, illumination and electricity, structures and materials, interior air quality, water supply, lead-based paint and access, site and neighborhood conditions, sanitary conditions, smoke detectors, and carbon monoxide detectors. So the carbon monoxide detector is a new thing as of December 22nd of, or no, December 17th of 2022. Okay. If you got a fuel burning appliance in your unit, it doesn't matter if it's stove, furnace, it doesn't matter. If it's got a pilot, you're going to need a carbon monoxide detector. And here's the other catch is that if you have an all electric unit, and say you've got an attached garage to that unit, and you're parking that car, you're going to need carbon monoxide detectors in your unit. If you have a 2-story building and all that's all electric, but you've got a fuel burning water heater down in the basement, it's not powered exhaust. When we walk in there and do an inspection on that unit, it's going to be required to have a carbon monoxide detector in that unit. So I get that question a lot. Hey, my units are all electric. We got a 5-story building here. Yeah. But you got a water heater down in the basement that will naturally fill up the basement and make its way through the air ducts and whatever else, and we'll have carbon monoxide poisoning. So if it's got a light on it, you need a carbon monoxide detector. And it could get quite costly. We understand that. Now, we don't tell you where to put that carbon monoxide detector. We've seen some interesting places where they're put, but what I will say is that we won't tell you where to put it, other than it needs to be near sleeping areas. But I do recommend you to read the instructions on placement when you buy your carbon monoxide detector. Not sure about the liability of that piece. I put it elsewhere. So just throwing that out there. You can find these guidance, what HUD is required from us on our website. Okay. It can be found at wichita.gov/housing. There's a lot of information on there outside of the inspections, what we're doing and how we're doing it and what we plan on doing. It's going to be found on that website. So when we come out and do an initial inspection, after the RFTA has been sent in and you put a request for us to come out there and inspect it, when we get out of our cars, this is what we're seeing. Do we got a visible address? Do we got access to the unit? Do we have chipping paint? Do we have a detached garage with structures, fences, porch rails, HVAC, flues, chimney, breaker boxes, power lines, gutters, landscape, foundation, ponding. Those things that we're gonna look at. We're not going to, we'll look at these things and we'll make our assessment on there. Like I said, we're not gonna tell you how to fix it. Maybe you need a contractor, maybe you're not, but we'll cite you for it. You know, and that's not all of it. You know, we come here and all we're trying to do in this HQS is just, we're trying to meet the intended purpose of everything that's on that property. You know, there's some things that are not required, like screens, screen doors, but if they're gonna be in place, they need to be acting like their intended purpose, okay? So, the chipping paint, it's, pre-1978, anything that's on there is gonna have to be, secured. Now in the wintertime, I get this question a lot, hey, it's wintertime, what can I do? Here's the deal, we understand that, but you can also apply kills in the wintertime. So you can throw primer on there and secure that paint, okay? It doesn't need to be painted, you can wait till springtime, but we just need that paint because the federal government obviously thinks that the kids are gonna just show up there and just start using paint right away, right? So just secure the paint, make sure that it's not chipping, flaking paint, and then when it comes to the HVAC, you know, here's the deal. We're not gonna pull the burners off, we're not gonna do anything like that, but if we get in there and we see that this furnace doesn't look right, we're gonna ask that you get documentation from a certified HVAC tech that the unit's been serviced and safe for use. And you'd be surprised how many people get upset about that one. Okay, so we're gonna just go over some pictures here. This is kind of upon the arrival, right? When you get there, there's some structures here. In the picture to the left, you see the gutters, you know, they're not acting as their intended purpose, okay? They're full. We don't ask that you guys put gutters on your unit, but if they're there, they need to be functioning like they should. So you're gonna get cited for that. You're gonna say, hey, look, we're gonna say, you know, clean gutters out because it's not acting as its intended purpose. You're creating issues for your own house, you know, with it being that way. So, that's one of those things that we cite. Down here, we've got a basement, the second picture there, this basement, I'm looking down there, the tenant has no business being down there. Now, we got a security issue here, right? I mean, it's like people can come and go and do whatever they want in your basement. Probably should get that taken care of. So we'll cite you up for security, and then flooding is also an issue. The third picture here, there again, gutter's not one of our things, but if the gutter's standing there on the ground and it's preventing us from walking into the building, we're gonna ask you to take care of that. And then same with this picture here, to the far right here, there again, we asked the landlord to, fix the window and they just put insulation on it and that was it. So, all right, obviously that's not gonna work out. So we asked them to actually secure the window and make it right.
What was the third picture?
So the third picture here, as you can see, the gutter is right here. Okay, and it's like the gutter had fallen off the building and it's there in the walkway. We're there to do the inspection, and we just didn't do that day and came back the other day. So you just water anything? You good? Okay, all right. So our next picture. Here you've got, so we're gonna start over here at the far right. So I am standing out here looking, and this is on top of someone's roof. I see squirrels, I see birds, I see everything living in the house other than the tenant, right? So, so I asked them to fix that, and they did, okay. But these are things that we walk up to, right? We walk up and see the hole in the roof. And what we'll find out is, you know, a lot of our tenants, they're coming from areas that maybe are, I'm gonna say shelters, or they're coming from, maybe International Rescue Center, you know, coalition, maybe it's a family coming from another country. And what we see on our RFTA is that the tenant, when they come to your house, they have to do their own pre-inspection. And what we see is that it says on their pre-inspection, this unit looks really good, and coming from their environment, I'm sure it does, you know, it's much different, it's not the streets, it's not coming from another country. It's, it's America, you know, they're here, you know?
That's nothing.
You know, and that's nothing to them. But, you know, but I look at this pre-inspection and it says, man, this house, this unit is great, it's ready to go, it's moved in. And I show up and it kind of looks like that, you know? And so that holds up the process, right? And I have, you know, some landlords, oh, you can put, you know, the unit's ready to be inspected, it's ready to go now. And then so when the tenant looks at that date of inspection, they assume that that's gonna be the end result of everything, right? They don't know, or they sign something that says that they understood that if the unit fails inspection, they got 15 days, the owner's got 15 days to get those repairs made and call back into us for a reinspection. So on the other end of that, that person that's come from a different scenario than what we're used to is hammering our phones. Hey, you said the inspection should have been done on this day, you know, where you at? Where you at? Hey, no, we got 15 days, the owner's got 15 days to get this taken care of and get us all back in. And I'm sure you guys get the same phone calls that I get, right? Because everybody's eager to get into their house, which rightfully so, but our job as the inspector, we gotta make sure that the unit is safe, not only for the tenant, but also for the landlord, right? We don't want any unsurprising lawsuits or anything to that nature, so we want to make sure that everybody's on the up and up. So, like I said, walk up, the window's broken, we got a hole in the roof. You look at this and you say, well, that's just a refrigerating line set. Well, that is just a refrigerated line set, but what we do have here is it's a highway for the mice, okay? And this person called me because they said that they have a mice infestation and the landlord is telling me that, hey, I took care of all those holes. Well, I didn't share the picture with the tenant did, but he had video of the mice running up the refrigerator line, going right into the house, okay? I said, well, you forgot one. You need to polish this one up, and that's what that's about, that picture, okay? And these are the things that we see, right? Right when we walk up, everybody says the unit's ready to go, everybody's ready to move in. Our next picture here, there again, on the left, this basement here has the washer and dryer down in it, okay? Well, I don't know if they're gonna be able to do washer and dryer without getting the trash out of the basement, right? So, right, told the owner, hey, you need to get that cleaned out, let's make it right. The picture on the far right, there again, any chipping, flaking paint on the unit, any rotting window sills, anything that is not good is gonna get called out on, right? Window sills in the deal, if it's rotting, we're gonna ask you to fix it. If it's chipping, flaking paint, the HUD says anything larger than a piece of paper is gonna get called out, okay? So if you've got chipping, flaking paint that's larger than a piece of paper, you know that we're probably gonna ask you to fix it. That's just not our rules, that's HUD rules. The middle picture is what we do have on. Sometimes the landlord will provide us an RTA that says that in this particular case, there's 4 apartments, but there's 5 gas meters here, okay? Now, you see the 4, there was a 5th one there. On the RFTA, the homeowner or landlord put that the water heater gas is gonna be paid by them, but the gas going to the furnace is gonna be paid by the tenant. And you look at that, because we do allowances, right, on utilities. And we look at that and we're like, oh, hold on, we're giving the tenant allowance for gas because they're paying a bill. We're giving the owner allowance because they're paying a portion of the gas bill. Now, that could get a little weird sometimes, because I'm just gonna put it up to you this way. Landlords can take advantage of tenants by doing that, okay? If you do not have your gas spouts listed on label on what their intended purposes are, we're gonna ask you to do that. And that 5th meter is called a home meter, okay? The tenant, in this case, has got one going to its address. The other one is the one that is gonna be paid by the owner that takes care of the stove. Now, We can't call up Kansas Gas Service and say, hey, can you tell me exactly what's going on with these two meters here? Why do you have two gas bills at this address? You know, sometimes they're kind enough and say, yeah, there is. And then sometimes they're not. They don't give us the information we're looking for without being requested through their processes. So we can't tell, but what we have seen is that when those things go unchecked, what ends up happening is that maybe the tenant's paying for 2 units of a gas bill and not knowing. Okay, maybe they're like, man, why is my bill $700 a month? Well, they're paying for 2 units, don't even know, but there's a benefit going to the landlord. You know what I'm saying? Get the gas bill for the other unit, they're getting utility allowances and stuff like that. So I can't, and we've had that issue, okay? So when you do have that going on, and it does happen, these older places do have that going on. If you do have a home meter and you do have more gas meters, we're gonna ask that you list and label your gas meters on what their intended purpose is. And it also, what does that do? That also puts accountability on the landlord, right? They're the one writing off the gas meter. They're the one saying, hey, this is what it's intended purpose for. And if it becomes more than just that, it's not a case of, well, I didn't know that's what was going on. Kind of puts them on the hook a little bit. This is your documentation on your gas meter. So. Anyone, any questions by chance? Anybody? Okay, so the next picture here. So HUD doesn't allow us to have floor furnaces. We don't get into asking why, but if you got a unit that's got a floor furnace, we are going to ask that you provide documentation from a HVAC contractor that it's been capped off and it's not been in use. We're not gonna ask you to remove it. We're not gonna ask you to do anything other than that. But you ask yourself, well, that's my heat. Well, I understand that. So what some landlords have done is they took the floor furnace out and put window units in that does air conditioning and heating. Okay, well, that's fine, but that changes the narrative for the tenant, right? All of a sudden, their electric bill just gone up. Or maybe the electrical panel doesn't handle 2 or 3 air conditioners. Okay, that running at the same time. What's that gonna do for you on the back end as a landlord? Well, if you do that, and we accept that, we will accept that, but you're also gonna accept the burdens of. If you don't go in there and be proactive with your air conditioner window units. Say you plug them in, check it out, make sure everything's working right. Next thing you know, the tenant's calling us, they're putting in a special inspection request in because the breaker box are failing and everything's not working out, okay? So, and you don't want to have that happening when the tenant's inside the unit. You want to deal with all those things. When before the tenant gets, before you sign any HAP contracts. The other pictures here, the ones on the left, that flue was not connected, even in the attic. So the flue on the far left here, that water heater flue was just dumping straight into the attic. And the tenant called and said that she cannot stand the living in the unit because she feels like something is harming her. Well, I went over there and looked and I picked the flue up and it wasn't even attached to the attic. It was just dumping 100% into the attic. So she was getting carbon monoxide poisoning. The furnace on the right, there again, I don't have to touch anything on that furnace. And I can see that that's probably not safe, right? I mean, we probably ought to get someone out here that says something other than what I'm looking at, right? And what's gonna end up happening is there's a HVAC contractor, they're not gonna put their license on the line and say, well, this thing's working great and it looks fine. They're gonna condemn it. And they're gonna say that it needs to be replaced, okay? And the picture on the right or in the middle, they just had a new air conditioner and furnace installed. But they put a P trap in the middle of that where the condensation drains out of the A coil. And it was coming down the pipe and just going right here out on the floor. So my point of this is if you got contractors coming out to your house, you probably should follow up on an alert. Okay. Just because they say they're done doesn't mean they're always done. So I got here and it was coming out of the ceiling to the basement or to her bathroom on the main level. So we cited it for that. You're like, well, you know, We said, hey, fix the condensation drain. Now you've got a ceiling to fix and everything else, right? So the next unit, the picture on the left, that's where the refrigerator goes. Okay? The landlord got really upset at me because I didn't pass that inspection. And I told the person, I said, let me just come do the dishes once and we'll go from there, okay? And I said, how about this? How about you come help me do the dishes and we'll go from there? So she got mad because I didn't pass the inspection because the tenant couldn't use the sink appropriately. Well, that's not in our HQS. It's not anywhere you're gonna find that you gotta provide, access to your sink. But here's what it does provide, that we have to use the equipment as for its intended purpose and not half of it, but all of it. So that was my positioning on it. The owner on the picture on the right, I put a new stove in and I sent her a text message and I said, hey, I like your new stove, but where's the pans? She goes, the pan's there. I said, no, the pans aren't there. And I sent her that picture. Well, someone stole the pans. So it goes back to what MAPC saying. If you see a unit that's not secure or anything like that, let someone know. They didn't steal anything else. They just took the pans. So they was able to find use for those pans. Okay, so the next pictures. Okay, so buckling is the one on the left. We go down in the basement and you've got buckling like that. It's not going to work out. We're not going to tell you, hey, you need to patch and do whatever. We're going to ask that you get a structural engineer to determine that your basement's safe. And if it is, great. And if it's not, then what that's going to do, you got 15 days to get that fixed. If you don't get it fixed in 15 days, we don't hear from you, we're going to pass the RFTA off to the housing specialists and we're going to tell them, hey, look, I haven't heard from anybody. And what they're going to do is they're going to cancel that inspection out. And if that tenant's sitting there waiting for getting things repaired, because they get the same list that you get, right? We send you an inspection report, they get it, you get it, they get the same thing. They don't hear from anybody. We're going to tell the tenant they can find another unit to go live. It's, 15 days. Keeps the paperwork moving, if you will. The picture on the right, obviously, to me, it's obvious, right? You got a stove sitting on some carpet here. They asked, what's the big deal? Well, it's kind of like carpet in the bathroom, right? What's the big deal, right? So we asked them, hey, no, that's not good. We need to do something different here. There's actually a code about having burners up off the ground, 18 inches and stuff like that. But here in this case, we had a boiler that was literally like 12 inches from the carpet. So they went ahead and put in a vinyl flooring for us and the tenant stayed there on that one. Back to the buckling part of it. Here again, there's again, this gentleman right here, he bought this house on an auction. He paid $25,000 for the house. He put $15,000 in it on the upstairs. And when I got downstairs, I said, what are we doing about here? And he goes, well, what about this? And I said, well, your wall's about ready to come inwards. And I said, we can't have that here. And he goes, well, I didn't buy this to fix the basement. And I said, well, here's the deal. Call a structural engineer, have them come out, tell me this basement's safe, which it was not. So, you put $50,000, got a good deal on the house, but we forgot about the basement here. So that's just as important as the main level of service. Go ahead.
So, tenant needs to move because the level is so doesn't want to fix whatever it is. You said they have, how much time would they have to find a new place? Do they start the number?
Okay, so that's a good question. So here's the deal. When you move in and you provide an RFTA to us, before that tenant moves in, you got 15 days. That's your initial inspection. That's before anybody moves in. That's a vacant unit. You got 15 days from the day that we did that inspection. And that day starts that day that we're there. Okay, so you got 15 days. After that 15 days, the inspection is canceled. And if the tenant's still there waiting to hear from you or us or somebody, we're going to ask the owner to resubmit a new RFTA, and start the process over again, okay? So that's before the tenant goes in. Now, if the tenant's living in the unit already, then we do a biannual inspection, okay? We show up there and there's things that occurred after the initial inspection. And I'm getting ready to get into this on this next slide here. Is owner and family responsibilities. Now, if the tenant's living in a unit, you have 30 days from the day of the inspection to get those things fixed and call back in and re-inspected by us. Now, if it's a health and safety, say like life threatening, you've got 24 hours, okay? In 24 hours, I need to hear something from you. I need to say, hey, look, I got a schedule of contracts coming out today. I got this going on, I got this going on. Or you fixed it in 24 hours. Something needs to happen in 24 hours, so we don't put the unit in abatement. And that abatement word is that we're gonna hold your next month rent from you. That's what that means, okay? So, does that answer your question? Okay, so,
They've asked for special inspection and it doesn't look place what happens with tenants.
okay, so if it doesn't get fixed, what ends up happening is the unit gets put into abatement. And it can be put in abatement for 6 months, okay? That means you're not gonna get paid rent for 6 months, okay? Now, what ends up happening? And I need to make this clear, and I'm gonna get into this right here, is that that's when the tenant's inside the unit, right? Living in the unit, that we're showing up every 2 years to do the inspection. If the 24-hour fellow is not met, the unit's gonna be put in abatement for 6 months. Or if the 30-day correction is not met, it's gonna be put into abatement for 6 months, okay? And then in that time, the tenant can get another voucher to move elsewhere, okay? If things get to be prolonged, the housing specialist decides it's best, the tenant moves, they'll give her a voucher or give that person a voucher to move elsewhere, okay? Now, let's get into owner and family responsibilities, and what that is, there's 3 things. When the tenant's living inside the unit, there's only 3 things that tenant's gonna fail for. If the utilities are in their name and we show up there, whether it be a special inspection, annual inspection, biannual inspection, and then the utilities are not in their name and they're not on, they get 24 hours to get turned back on. If not, they're gonna get kicked. Okay, they're gonna get, potentially lose their voucher. Okay, you need to ask yourself, okay, they lose their voucher. What does that mean to them? Well, most of the time people have been waiting 1 to 2 years for that voucher, okay? And it's not just a, hey, we just hand those vouchers out like candy. No, there's a process and it takes time. So what's the skin in the game for the tenant? Tenant, you lose your voucher, you're not getting it again for another 5 years, okay? So that's your skin in the game as a tenant. So the 3 things, utilities, if it's in their name and it's not on, we show up there, they got 24 hours, they're gonna potentially lose their voucher. The other thing is that they've got appliances that are owned by them, that's stated on the RFTA, that is provided the range and refrigerator. If that's the case and they own it and that refrigerator is not working or that's gone or it's missing, they got 24 hours to get it in there and get it going. If not, they jeopardize their voucher. And the third thing is above normal wear and tear. Yeah. Right here, normal wear and tear is defined as items which cannot be charged against the tenant security deposit under state law or court practice. Okay, all right, so normal wear and tear. I'm gonna give you an example of what a normal wear and tear is. The other day I walked into a house and the gentleman had taken down all the ceiling fans, took down all the smoke detectors, took down all the light fixtures, cut down trees of the unit. And I'm there. And the gentleman told me, he said, Eric, sit down on the couch. So I did. And he goes, I want you to look in the hole where I took the smoke alarm down. Do you see those eyes and legs up there staring at you? I said, no, I do not. But that doesn't mean you don't see them. I just don't see them. So he had a breakdown and took everything down. I said, hey, look, you've got 24 hours to get those, took them down. You obviously can't put the trees back, but I need you to get everything back into compliance on this unit. And if not, you're gonna jeopardize your voucher. And so the landlord stepped in and they actually took care of it for him. That's above normal wear and tear. That's you altering the property other than its intended purpose, okay? And that's what you're gonna fail on. We walk into the unit, you've got crown marks, you've ruined the rug, you know, put small holes into the wall. That's under your security deposit, right? We're not gonna get into your lease, and that's just it. You know, your lease is what you've got to hang on to in a court of law, right? We're not gonna get into you and say, hey, you can't charge a tenant for infractions of your lease. But if it's not in your lease and you try to do that after the fact, that ain't no work. You can't do that. You can't go after the fact and say, well, here, this situation showed up and I'm gonna charge a tenant for it. No, you need your lease to be polished when you do business with us, right? So that's your only ground of a position there. So that's what normal wear and tear is. It also says owner's responsibility. The owner is responsible for all HQ violations not listed as a family responsibility above, even if the violation is caused by family's living habits, including vermin infestation. However, if the family's actions constitute a serious repeated lease violation, the owner may take legal action to evict the family. So when you do business with us, you're agreeing that you're going to take care of pest control right off the top. Okay? That's just how that works. Now, if you feel like the tenant is the cursor to their infestation, act on your lease, okay? That's how it happened. I had an owner, prime example. Hey, I didn't have cockroaches and bed bugs until the tenant moved in. Oh, yeah? Yeah, can you prove that? No, but what I can say is their living conditions is contributing to that factor. Okay, what you got? Show me a bunch of pictures and I said, well, I'm no expert in trash, but that looks pretty trashy. And so I'm gonna go ahead and assume that that's the case. And what they did is they evicted the tenant because of their living conditions, okay? That's why they got evicted. You get evicted, you're pretty much gonna lose your voucher if you get evicted from your unit with us. So, but you're basically, and all you're doing as a landlord is, and the tenant as well, is that we're trying to maintain the initial inspection, like what it was like when we got there, okay? We understand people live, and this goes into my story here, these pictures right here. There's part of the ceiling fan, he took it down, and he put this foam thing on the ceiling to secure the wires. There's his smoke alarm, and then he also dug a nice fire pit. And if you see here, here's public walkway, and there's a public walkway here. We made him fill the hall because you're not supposed to have big fire pits like that in the city of Wichita. And then in this picture over here to the right, we're not talking about the hole in the door. So the owner, they were complaining about that the heating and air wasn't heating the apartment. Well, what the owner did is they took this door off and it had a bifold slated door originally. Then they put the solid door in and they couldn't get return air back to the furnace. So the air became stale and cold in there. So if you got a slated door, you probably should put a slated door back on for whatever, you know, in this case, it was because of the return air being in that closet. Here again, showing up. This is a tenant. We got a complaint from MABCD saying the tenant's living outside and not living inside. And that's pretty much the case. The tenant was wanting to live outside and not inside. But that's not why we gave him a voucher. We gave him a voucher to live inside the unit. Here again, the carpet. They just had a water heater installed. They left the panels off to the power and we had 220 volts exposed. So we had the owner put the panels back on. There again, landlord on the left, he had a new garbage disposal in by his contractor and that's how they wired it up. That's not gonna work. You put them in junction boxes. And then on the one on the right, the tenant took the doorknob and just used a lock. Told him to fix that, okay? So when we do inspections, we go inside the house, we'll take this device here, we'll go around and check your electricals, okay? We'll look at that and we'll plug that in, and if they're not grounded, if your receptacles are not grounded, okay? What we'll ask is that you either ground it or put GFI protected breakers in, or go to 2-prong, okay? But if it's not grounded, what that does is that opens you up from on the tenant side, saying, hey, look, your unit's not grounded. You just fried my computer and TV. Guess what? They're gonna ask you to pay for those things, okay? So make sure your unit's grounded properly, okay? And this device here, it's pretty self-explanatory. Just read the instructions that are attached to it when you buy that. It's a ground tester, okay? There again, we get into the 2-prong or the 3-prong. The 3-prong is going to give you your ground. The 2-prong is going to eliminate that, and do not, and I am recommending that you do not provide a adapter for them, a 3-prong adapter to use in their 2-prong outlet. There again, you're borrowing that trouble, okay? You're borrowing, hey, I don't have a grounded outlet, but I'm gonna go ahead and give you a grounded 3-prong device to use. Don't do that. You basically are essentially saying when they have 2-prong, saying, hey, look, I don't have a grounded unit. It's up to you what you do after that. Okay, here's some hazards here. Open wires are gonna get called out if you got things that are not in their junction boxes and they don't got their cover plates. We're gonna call it out, okay? There again, some more infractions. And all we're trying to do here at the housing department is, like I said, the unit needs to be acting as its intended purpose, and that's all we're trying to do here. We're not trying to go above that. We're not MABCD. But when we do get into MABCD, I'm going to give you an example. I had a house here the other day. I walked in and the windows were all above my head. They were square windows. Every one of those windows in this house were that way. I can't even get out of there. So I didn't allow the unit on the program because who's going to get out of the house, right? We need to get better windows. And how that looks is that you need to look at city ordinances when you start replacing windows and providing egresses. That's not what we do here. We don't get into city ordinances and what that their language means. What we do say is, hey, you're gonna put this window in, you need to follow up with codes, jurisdictions, on install that window. Okay? Do you guys have any questions? I'm about ready to wrap this up here. Any questions? Anybody?
I have one
Go
question.
ahead.
The slide that you showed where, you know, they bought a house, through auction.
Uh-huh. Basement?
Yeah, do you know if they have a chance to look at the house before they go and, you know?
I'm not for sure what had. I'm not sure. I talked to the owner here and he was aware of the basement, okay, from what of my understanding, but his focus was directed to the upstairs, making it livable, right? And he said, he told me, he said, Eric, I'm not gonna be using the basement. Well, I'm like, the house says, you can't tell the tenants, you know, the tenants' kids not to go down in the basement, okay? So no, he just got driven. He was driven to make that house livable and he wasn't worried about the basement. And that kind of backfired.
Yeah.
So what you can do, I did put my cards back there, and there is a thing, there's a document back there. It's a good place to live. That document right there is provided by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. That is your minimum standards and the process of getting to that minimum standard is in that document there. And if you need any interpretation of that document, my business card is back there. Go ahead and give me a call, and I'll be happy to walk you through anything, okay? So I think we're time for lunch, right? Is that what we're doing, Sarah? Okay, all right. We're big time, guys. You folks have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to get together. I'm married.
Oh, hi, Meredith. Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, the face there.
Yes.
So you